Welcome to Barnyard Language, honest talk about running farms and raising families. We are Katie and Arlene, an Iowa sheep farmer and an Ontario dairy farmer, with 6 kids, 2 husbands, and a whole lot of chaos between us.
While this is a podcast for farm families, sometimes our content isn't for the whole family. So kick off your boots, reheat your coffee, and join us for some Barnyard Language.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Barnyard Language. So we took 1 week off of doing an update because we had a 2-week episode, which means that we must have a ton to update each other on. I'm not convinced that's true, but I'm going to ask Katie anyway. What's going on the farm in Iowa?
Arlene, I feel like we might have more to update each other on if we didn't talk like every day outside of the podcast. I pretty much.
Yeah, that's true. And then forget what we actually recorded.
Yeah, well, there's that too. Or if I knew what was going on, which would also help. Guys got at least most of second crop hay done. We just have rows of marshmallows all over the damn farm now because we don't normally wrap this much, but it's been humid and rainy, and so we're wrapping everything. Other than that, I mean, it's late July. It's fair season. It's humid as shit. That's really it. I mean, it's, we're in that one of those, I don't like to say lulls, but a less busy than normal expectation. Let's put it that way. A moment to catch up on all the shit that doesn't get done at all the times that are busier than the time that is today.
Right, yeah, all the usual summer stuff without extra summer stuff. So I maybe shouldn't even ask this question, but since you have shared on the show that you were made unemployed, how is the job search going? And you can not answer that question if you want to.
If anybody knows anyone who's hiring a trust and safety analyst, let me know. One thing I had not considered is that the national conference is this week, which means that any applications I've put in recently are probably sitting in a long line behind everybody getting home from his conference. The job market for tech is very, very, very bad. And I am well qualified for my job, but other people are too. And being well qualified or not does not stop people from applying, which still means that you still have to get to the top of that pile, whether you belong at the top of that pile or not.
And I'm guessing the benefit of a remote job is that anyone can do it and you can do it from your home in Iowa. But the downfall of a remote job is that anyone can do it and anyone in the world can do that job from their home.
Yeah, there are some limitations by where countries hire from for tax and visa reasons and things and language needs and what have you. A shocking number of jobs are not still remote only or even remote first, which is its own whole thing. But as someone who is not in a position to relocate,
And I'm guessing the local job market is not thriving where you currently live.
not heavy on the remote tech work. No. And I mean, obviously, if I need to get something lower paying just to have something, then that's what I'll do. But I've spent a lot of years building these skills, and it would be nice to be able to use them. And it would be nice to be compensated equally for the skills that I've built. Let's put it that way. Other than that, we had some little friends over yesterday to swim and play, and Bailey, our little Aussie, who is very short and has a real complex about being so short, made very fast friends with our friend's 2.5-year-old daughter, and Bailey did not realize they had left, and when she came in the house and the kids were gone, she ran all through the house yowling to herself and clicking her teeth, which is her biggest display of distress, to be honest, because her little friend was gone, because she had finally made a friend who was at the right face height for her to kiss on the face and love on and not be ignored in favor of somebody taller. So it was very sad.
Distressing for poor Bailey.
Yeah, poor Bailey. How are things at your place, Arlene?
Well, like I said, 2 weeks has passed, and yet I don't exactly know what we did. There was some hay in there for sure. Same. Lots of wrapped hay, did some more bags. So same as you, there's plastic everywhere in our yard. We don't have a bunk currently. We do have some silos, one of which has a broken silo and loader that we just haven't fixed, partly because we're not sure that we want to make that investment and continue to use that silo. But as you look at the field of plastic out in the yard, it's we're deciding whether that's a good option, or building a bunk, or maybe just continuing to wrap hay for now. The weather seems to have broken, thankfully, but I think another heat wave is coming, so that'll be fun. The cows are definitely starting to show some signs of heat stress, as are the people. So hopefully this one is a little bit shorter, because the last one seemed to be pretty hard on milk production and feed intake and all that kind of stuff. We are doing some more college and university tours the next week or so. We did a couple, I guess one last week. I've got 2 booked this week with my 17-year-old. So just trying to weigh lots of options, and I'm trying to, like, put on my serene and non-bothered face while he has not really any thoughts on what he wants to do, but we're just presenting options and we will figure it out. I know that at 17 it's not like he has to have his life figured out, but I'm the kind of person who I think about when I graduated high school, we still had grade 13 in our province, which meant you could graduate in grade 12 and go to college, or if you wanted to go to university, you took one more year of high school and then you could enter university with those credits that you took in grade 13. So I mean, I was 19 when I graduated high school, but I was also the type of person who probably knew, a few years from graduation what I wanted to do, and maybe even where I wanted to go. But I know that that's not the case for everyone, and so I need to chill out, which is what I'm telling myself. But they're informative, they're interesting. I'm getting to learn lots of things and try to convince myself that I don't want to go back to school, because I actually probably don't. But there are a lot of cool programs out there, so it's fun to learn anyway.
Well, and if what he finds out from visiting is that he doesn't want to do this, that's worth a lot too. And a college visit is a hell of a lot cheaper than a year of school to realize that you don't want to be here or do this.
Yeah, that's right. And we're definitely crossing some things off the list, which is just as important as deciding what you want to do is what you don't want to do. So those are all things that are getting us to the right direction. And I can also just look at them as, like summer activities. It's a thing that we get to do together. So that's pretty fun too.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, you're getting to go on some road trips and see some new places. And
Yeah, exactly. We go out for lunch while we're there, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, go into the city.
woo! Do you get to ride up and down in the escalators? And
Sometimes, yeah, it depends on the size of the school. But yeah, there's been elevators and escalators. So yeah, all the excitement.
wow, farm kids on a spree right there.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead and introduce our guest for this week?
All right.
Are you a farmer or butcher ready to master direct-to-consumer marketing and meet success?
The team at ChopLocal is standing by ready to help. Sell your meat on the ChopLocal Marketplace. Check out all their free meat marketing educational resources at ChopLocal University. Hire the team to help you out, or tune into their new podcast called Meat Success.
And remember, there's more than one recipe for meat success. Let us help you fine-tune yours today at ChopLocalUniversity.com.
Today, we are happy to be talking to Michaela Gassling, who's joining us from Nebraska. And I think this means we get to check another state off of our list. So we're very excited about that, and about talking to you too, Michaela. So we always start each of our interviews with the same question, and this is your intro to our listeners. So our question is, what are you growing? So for our farmers, that's usually crops and livestock, but can also include kids and businesses and whatever else that happens to be growing in your life or around your house. So Michaela, what are you growing?
Right now, we are growing crops, mostly wheat here in western Nebraska, a little bit of corn and hay this year. We also have cattle, and then our 4 children, who are ages 13, 10, 7, and 4. So
that is a lot of things growing. Now, for the farmers in the crowd, everybody always wants to know what kind of cows, color, that kind of stuff, and kind of what's your setup in terms of what they look like when they're actually out there.
Black Angus. So not too exciting.
They all kind of look the same.
Mm-hmm.
And now when it comes to selling crops and livestock, how are you actually getting rid of them off the farm?
We usually take our calves to the sale barn, usually around October. Um, and then it's almost wheat harvest, so that'll be upon us in July.
Right. Now, what is your own personal connection to agriculture? Did you grow up in this lifestyle, or did you marry into it, or educate your way into it?
Both. I grew up in central Nebraska on a big um, cattle ranch, and my parents actually have crops and cattle also. Lots of corn in central Nebraska. Um, and I went to college knowing what I wanted to do career wise and swore I would never move back to the farm. And then I met my husband, and we did live in a city for a while, but now we are back on the farm. But I can't imagine being anywhere else. So,
Right. And so, what was your career that was going to keep you in the city and away from having to grow crops and cows?
yes, I am an ultrasound technologist. And so we lived in the city for a while. I did that for 7 years until we decided to move to the farm. And then I just worked part time a couple of places, still doing that, but driving a long distance. And then actually stayed home completely with the kids for about 6 years and just started about a year and a half ago doing ultrasounds again. I drive an hour to work, but I just go 1 or 2 days a week. So it's actually pretty great.
Yeah, that's a good compromise to get some of the hours in, but not have to be doing that big commute every day. So I think a lot of people, when they think about ultrasounds, are just thinking about babies. But I mean, obviously, ultrasounding is for a lot of different things. If someone isn't that well versed in ultrasound technology, what kinds of things are you actually doing and looking for when you're ultrasounding people?
Yeah, you're right. I myself, that's what got me interested in ultrasound when I was 12 years old, actually. That's when my youngest brother and sister were born. And I just thought that ultrasound was so cool. And I still feel that way. But little did I know we actually ultrasound so many things from the thyroid in your neck. We do breast ultrasound, all the soft tissue and solid organs in your abdomen. So, liver, lots of gallbladders looking for gallstones, kidneys looking for kidney stones, um, down to arteries and veins in your arms and legs. So, there's a lot more than just babies. It's very interesting and different every day.
Now, I know that I've mostly been in there for babies or, things related to the uterus. And often the ultrasound techs can't say much. Does that get frustrating when you know that there's something, or are there certain things you can and cannot say to a patient who's on the table?
Yes, we are not the radiologist. We are the technologist. So it is our job to get all of the good images and write down anything that we might find that looks abnormal, and then the radiologist gets to make that report for the physician. So we're not I tell patients, because most people ask what we're seeing, and I say I don't get paid enough to give you those results, and it is frustrating, but I mean that's just part of the job, is we can't tell you. And these days, they're really fast at getting them read and getting the results to their physician. So I usually just try to assure them they don't have to wait very long. They'll get the results.
Yeah, that's right. I'm doing lots of measuring. So when it came to getting your own self ultrasounded, what was that like to either watch someone else do it, or did you sometimes like was there the possibility to sneak in and do a little extra scan?
Yeah, with my first three kiddos, I was still working. And so they actually have entire photo albums of ultrasound pictures from before they were even born, because, yeah, myself or my coworkers, we would a perk of the job, I guess. And then with our fourth baby, that was during the time that I was not working anywhere. So we decided since I couldn't look myself, we decided to keep that one a surprise until the time that he or she was born. And so when I did have my anatomy scan at 20 weeks, I just had to close my eyes for most of the time. So, but it was an amazing experience to get to find out, boy or girl, the moment that she was born.
Right. I never thought of that. Yeah, but it'd be hard not to look and when you know exactly what you're looking for. Do you ever get recruited to ultrasound cows?
Not yet. We don't have enough that we use ultrasound when we preg check, but I would love to do that. I've seen it done, and it's, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. Might be an interesting little sideline too to offer those services.
All right. So, someone who had fertility problems, I got a lot of ultrasounds. And my kids basically look like something from a Peter Jackson horror movie situation in all of them. What determines whether you get, you know, my cousin, I know a lot of women who like, and it doesn't seem to matter if it's even our 3D ultrasounds weren't very, my kids are much, much cuter than their ultrasounds made them out to be. Let's put it that way. How, what determines whether you get that ultrasound and it's like Hallmark picture perfect or whether it looks like something that's going to eat your brain?
Probably partly the machine, different. They all just look a little different, but um, do you remember were they like how far along you were? Because usually when we do our routine anatomy scans, that's around 20 weeks, and babies still are very much, they don't have nice chubby cheeks. They kind of look like skeletons. And a lot of people are a little freaked out about that, understandably. But when you're, in your third trimester and babies are starting to plump up a little and have nice chubby cheeks and big lips, then they sometimes look cuter on the ultrasound. But
I think a lot of it was, at least with my daughter, she was so hard to get to sit still long enough to do an ultrasound that they just kind of got what they needed and got out of there.
I'm thinking of those ones where they catch the face straight on, and that is terrifying. That's the one you want to avoid.
yeah, position makes a difference too.
Yeah, that's what we got of both kids. Is just like it is. Yeah, looks like something out of a horrible movie. And with both kids, we had our first ultrasounds at like 9 weeks. I want to say with our son, I think it was actually 7 weeks because we were looking for viability scans. So we had a lot of ultrasounds. But yeah, I mean, like with my daughter during the anatomy scan, it took more than an hour to get one shot of whether she was a boy or a girl. And even that one, he was like, I wouldn't paint the nursery yet, maybe.
Yeah. That is frustrating when you're trying to chase a baby.
So it's good to know that it wasn't just my kids because I was a little worried, from the ultrasounds that they might come out kind of reptilian.
No.
So, Michaela, you were saying that you have worked full time off farm, had been home for some years, and are now back to part time working. What have you found has been the right balance for you? And I'm sure that changes, depending on the age of the kids and whatever's going on in your life. But were there times where it felt like it was off for you?
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the deciding factors in us moving to the farm because we straight out of ultrasound school, I went to work at a hospital in a radiology department, and small-ish town, but I mean, big hospital. There were only 3 of us ultrasound techs in the department, which meant that the 3 of us were all working full-time, taking call on weeknights, and then taking call all weekend. And for a while, it was okay. I was young and ambitious and no children. But after 7 years, and um, our oldest was 2.5, and then I was pregnant with our second, I was just absolutely burnt out. Absolutely. It's hard to even describe. Just could not. I just like hit rock bottom of knowing I cannot do this any longer. Like there has to be life outside of this hospital. I had missed so many family things, so many events, holidays, being on call, you can't be more than like 20 minutes from the hospital. We didn't have any family in that town. Our nearest family was an hour away here. So one night I had, I don't know, worked a 13-hour shift and then went home, tried to go to bed. It was a blizzard. Had to go back to the hospital to the ER. Came back home, tried to go to bed. No sooner like got called back, had to go back to the hospital to the ER in a blizzard. So by the time I came home again and my pager went off again in the middle of the night, I just looked at Matt and I said, I'm quitting on Monday. And I think he thought I was crazy, but I did it. And I just, it was a huge leap of faith for us. I worked part time at a different place for a little while, and then the stars just kind of aligned, and it was time to move to the farm. And so that's what we did. And we've been here 11 years this year. So
That doesn't seem like a viable option for very many people to be working, like farming is one thing, but yeah, at least you have some control, in some seasons, right? Over the hours that you work. But yeah, when emergencies come in and you have to be there, then but yeah, there's a point where and then you'd have to go back into work in the morning too, right? Like if you're getting those calls, yeah.
yeah. And so to answer your question, that was definitely, there was no balance there. And then even working part time, that worked for a while, but it was still like my 2 days a week. There are not many childcare options around here. So by the time I was pregnant with my third and driving an hour to work somewhere else, and we ran the numbers, and I said, I will barely break even. Like what I earn will barely cover our childcare if we can find childcare. And so we made the decision for me to stay home completely for a while. And Matt still, he's this entire time has worked full time as an agronomist in town also. Um, so, I mean, that worked until it didn't. And same way with staying home, it was a privilege to be able to stay home, even though it was not entirely my choice. Like it was a choice out of necessity. And then after 6.5 years, I was like, I am young. My children are now a little bit older. Most of them are in school. I think I need to make sure I still know how to do ultrasounds. And so for right now, this has been the most amazing balance to just be PRN. So I work 1 or 2 days a week. It's always different. I can say no if I need to, so it's pretty great right now.
Hmm. Is ultrasounding the kind of thing where you, after a certain amount of time, would have to re-register or take classes to renew your license or anything?
Yep. So the whole 6 years that I was not working anywhere, I made sure to keep up on my continuing education hours and my, lots of reading, lots of webinars and things to keep learning. And obviously I wasn't scanning. So the first day that I went to work, I was incredibly nervous that I was going to have to completely relearn how to scan, but it all came back, and that was good. So
Right, it comes back to you. That's good. So we usually ask our guests to reflect on the time that they first became parents because that is such a huge moment of change. And it sounds like as each of your kids were born, there were different things going on in your life. So I was wondering if you wanted to give us some insight into that first baby, but also how life changed after each of the four arrived on the scene.
sure. I think I probably have similar feelings to everyone when they first become a parent. Like it's the most life-changing experience of your life in all the ways. 1 to 2 was hard because we moved here 3 weeks after the second baby was born. So that was just crazy chaos. But it was really the third one that, looking back, it's easy to see I had just set myself up for this perfect storm because I experienced postpartum anxiety after her. But looking back now, it's so easy to see that, of course, I did, because I had gone from always working outside the home, even if it was just a couple of days a week, to having her and being completely at home with these three little kids by myself 24/7. I mean, Matt was home in the evenings, barely, and, sometimes on Sunday. And so it's easy to see, like, of course, of course I got postpartum with after her, because that was the biggest change for all of us, to not only add another baby, but here I am now out in the middle of nowhere with these three kiddos, like 5, almost 3, and then a newborn, and just on my own all the time. So,
Yeah. What did postpartum anxiety look like for you? Because it feels like postpartum depression gets talked about a lot, but postpartum anxiety is less, I don't want to say less common, but I think it's less talked about. I think that there's fewer conversations about that particular issue, and a lot of women face it, but I don't know why that seems to get less conversation around it.
yeah, I myself, I don't think I'd heard of the baby blues and of postpartum depression, and I just kept saying, like, I am not sad, I'm not depressed, I'm not, but yet I had. So for me, she was around 8 months old. I had just all of this rage all of the time. Like, I wanted to explode on my kids. I resented my husband every moment of the day. Like, he got to leave, I never get to leave. Just everything. It was awful. But I didn't have a name for it. I just thought, and then the anxiety too, like, I started worrying that something was going to happen to one of the kids or to myself, and I'm there all alone, all by myself all the time. And I read something on the website Her View from Home, which is a really big, popular website. You've probably heard of it here in America, probably even Canada. Um, but I read something all about, like, she just was, it was like I was writing it about, like, the dishes are piled up and your husband doesn't know why you're so angry and all the things. And I read it and I cried, and I just thought, this is what's wrong with me. And she, named it postpartum anxiety. And I immediately, thanks to our, wonderful Facebook and social media that gets such a bad rap, but I messaged the author and I said, how did you know, like, what was wrong? And how did you know when you needed help for this? And she thankfully messaged me right back and had a great conversation. And I actually, I called my OB office, but then I chickened out and hung up. And I think somewhere in there I had called Matt, and so he called the office, and then they called me. Like, the beauty of having used to work there, I guess. But I got started on a low dose antidepressant, and within a week I felt like a new person. And yeah, I talk about it because, man, as not proud as I am to talk about the kind of mother that I was for those few months, if I can be that person like Lauren was for me, like, if I can just help one person to know, like, what you're experiencing, you might not have a name for it, but it's not a it's not uncommon, and there's nothing wrong. It's not something wrong with you. It's not abnormal. So many of us experience this, and it's okay if you need to ask for help, and there is help. So,
Michaela, I wonder, as someone who also dealt with postpartum anxiety, if part of why we don't talk about it is because anger is such a huge symptom of it and such a huge part of it. And as women in the society where we live, and especially as mothers, being angry is like the least acceptable possible thing to do. And especially, I mean, I have a good Irish Catholic temper. I'll admit it. I have never encountered a just straight up rage the way I felt from the anxiety. And it's scary. And the last thing you want to do is to go tell somebody you feel this way. And I know for myself at least there was fear about, you know, what'll happen with my husband? Will they take my baby? Will they, just what are the repercussions of admitting that I feel this way? It's horrible. 10/10, do not recommend, 2 thumbs down.
And then you add on what society does to us in the form of, well, you wanted kids, or you're so lucky to have kids. And then this is, you're just, now you're whatever. Now you're mad. Now you have this anxiety. Like, too bad you chose this. And that is absolutely maddening.
Yeah, and you're so lucky you get to stay home with them all the time. They're so perfect. They're so beautiful. Yeah, and when you get into it, your brain stops recognizing at some point that it's not logical that you feel this way. I feel like with medication, like sometimes I still get the anxiety, but my brain can kind of override it and be like, this is anxiety. This is not actually my brain talking, you know? But when you really get into the depth of it and people are like, and especially I think if you're dealing with a lot of other crap to have that baby, or if you know, this is your third one, you knew what you were getting into. Like, cool. You're not actually helping, you know? Like, wow. Much empathy. Thanks. Like, oh, this makes me want to grind my teeth just thinking about it.
For you, Michaela, looking back now, was it something that kind of happened right after you had your third, or did it kind of creep up on you?
It crept up on me, and I can't really put my finger. Like I said, she was about 8 months old when this day happened, and I realized, like, this is not okay. This is not me. I'm not sure how long it had actually been going on. That baby actually, when she was like 6 months old or so, had a lump that I found on her neck that she ended up needing to have surgery to remove, and it was just a benign thing. But that whole thing, I know, like, escalated my anxiety, as any, if your kiddo has to have surgery. So I'm sure that that kind of pushed me over the edge a little, but
Yeah, and all of the, anxiety and most mental, I'll use the word disorders, get worse under stress, right? And raising young children is stressful, and being sleep deprived, as I'm assuming you were, is stressful. And like your isolation is a risk factor. So it is, like you said, it's the perfect storm, and it's no fault of your own, but the situation you're in is adding all of those stress factors to actually make the condition worse. But yeah, if you're being told, or if you're telling yourself that you should be grateful and that this is the best time of your life and you should enjoy every moment, then it's hard to look for the help that you need. So I know from understanding a little bit of your backstory that then your experience with number four was a whole different experience. Do you want to kind of walk us through what that pregnancy and post-birth experience was like for you?
yeah, that was the most non-typical pregnancy and early, um, like, after newborn period that you could get, I think. I'm trying to think of probably around this time in the summer. So baby number 4 was born in October, but during that pregnancy in 2020, while we're in the middle of a world pandemic, also, talk about the perfect storm, I started having headaches that just got progressively worse through my pregnancy, and chalked them up to that summer. There was a lot of smoke from the Canadian wildfires, and so a lot of people were saying it's the smoke and you're pregnant and all the things, and they just kept getting worse. And then around August, I realized that I could not hear out of my left ear, and by, I don't know, the end of August or sometime in September, I realized that I was having balance issues, but, like, beyond my normal pregnancy balance issues. Like, this is number 4, not my first rodeo. I'm very active even through pregnancy, like running, yoga, all the things, and I could not walk in a straight line. And by that time, I think I knew that something was wrong, but I just, kind of like my OBs, like, we're just going to get this baby here and delivered safely. And then if your headaches don't go away, like if they're not just pregnancy headaches, then we'll figure it out.
It's scary to think about how many women probably have underlying health conditions that just get chalked up to you're pregnant and it's probably okay, so we'll deal with it later. Like it's a big chunk of a person's life if something acute is going on. Like 9 months is a long time to just delay and be like, it could be pregnancy related.
Yeah, because I mean, we blame everything on pregnancy, headaches, all the things.
Loss of hearing doesn't seem like a typical symptom.
Well, that one, the corn was pollinating, and so I took some antihistamines for a little bit, thinking like I'm just really congested, and that didn't work. And then I was like, oh, like, don't say it, don't think it, like, surely it cannot be. Like, we're just gonna get the baby here, and then I'll figure it out. And so, thankfully, I did have a healthy, uneventful delivery. And before I even went home from the hospital, like my headaches were just excruciating. So we got home, and I was only home for a couple of days, in which I was mostly just in bed with the worst headache of my life. And so she was born on a Tuesday. On Saturday, we went to the emergency room, and an MRI showed that I had a large brain tumor, so large that it was compressing things, not letting the spinal fluid go out of my brain down into my spinal canal, which meant that it was an emergency, that I needed to get to Denver, to the nearest big hospital where I could have surgery and get that brain tumor out of there.
Now, do you think that delivery might have made that work? I mean, like delivering a baby is not easy. It's not easy work, right? Like that, and there's additional pressure and pushing and all of that kind of stuff. Did that play a factor in the headaches getting worse, or at least definitely not improving?
I did ask my neurosurgeon that, and he and obviously my OB doctors all said, had we known that that was there, you would have had a C-section. Like, I very well could have had a stroke while I was delivering. But I think it was just the size, and I think it just coincided with having the baby. Like, it was more all the pregnancies, all the breastfeeding that I'd done for the last few years, that this had just grown and grown and grown, and it was done. There was no more space in my skull for this. And so I don't think that delivery made it worse, but it definitely could have been terrible.
Yes. Yeah.
I know too that pregnancy can make tumors grow faster because your body is growing a lot of cells and your body is primed to grow a lot of cells quickly, which is something that normally would presumably try not to do because it's
Yeah. Or focus those efforts on the baby cells instead of the one that's growing in your brain.
yeah, so I imagine that having several pregnancies potentially during the amount of time from when it very first began probably didn't help matters.
Yep, it was 6 centimeters. So they think it had been there for 5 to 6 years, which would have been maybe not during my second pregnancy, but definitely all that breastfeeding right into another pregnancy, breastfeeding right into another pregnancy. So
Right. So you get moved to Colorado during a pandemic. So is that you alone, you with a baby, you with a carer and no baby, or who got to go on that trip?
actually, one of my very best friends is a flight nurse. So she rode with me, but no baby. Matt followed us down there. We're, almost 5 hours from Denver. So once we got there, Matt got to be with me the entire time. And then somehow Swedish bent the rules a little bit and also allowed me to have a second guest. One of his sisters, my sister-in-law, was with us up until surgery and right after. But yeah, there were, you could have one visitor at a time. So like I had a couple friends who came and visited me, Matt had to like go down to the lobby so one of them could come up, and then when they were done, like then he could come back in, you know. So yeah, we didn't figure, since I couldn't nurse the baby and I wasn't gonna make my in-laws had our newborn, so I wasn't gonna make them drive 5 hours, and you know, for one of them to get a few minutes visit and the other one to get a few minutes visit, like yeah, it was just easier and better for them to stay here. We had FaceTime, thankfully, you know. But yeah, so Matt got to be with me for the time that we were at Swedish.
And so when it came to the surgery itself, was it like you got airlifted there and it was right away?
So this is a part of the story that I love to tell because it's so miraculous and so cool. That night in October, when I needed to be taken to Denver, it was being Nebraska and sleeting and really cold, and so I actually did not get to go by helicopter. But like I said, my best friend, who's a flight nurse, had Matt had called her while I was having my MRI, and she came down. So when they were talking about like she needs to get to Denver right now, but the helicopter can't take her, they were trying to find an ambulance, couldn't find an ambulance crew. And the ER physician was one who I had worked with previously when I worked there 10 years ago. He asked my friend if she wanted to ride with me. And so I think she got voluntold that but also she's one of the best humans in the world. She would have done it anyway, I think. But so she actually rode with me in the ambulance because I needed a registered nurse because I needed to start really strong steroids and diuretics. So I needed more than just an ambulance crew. I had to have a registered nurse with me. And so she rode with me down to Denver, 5 hours in a bumpy ambulance. And then when I got there, I stayed on the diuretic and steroid for Sunday and Monday, hoping that the swelling would go down in my brain enough to make surgery safer. And it worked. So they prepared Matt and my family and everyone that surgery would take probably 12 to 16 hours. And so again, they had to get like the house supervisor involved because they were starting it in the afternoon, which meant that my surgery would go all through the night and into the next morning. Visiting hours got over at 8. So they arranged that Matt could stay there at the hospital, thankfully, you know, when your wife is having brain surgery.
By himself?
Yes, by himself. And so thankfully, again, by the grace of God, my surgery took 4 hours. And then I spent a couple more days there and got to come home.
Wow. That is actually, considering the size and, you know, scariness of that situation, that actually was real efficient of them.
Yes, it was. Yeah, lots of miracles that we got to see.
So does that mean the tumor, not that I know anything about brain tumors, that the tumor was relatively uncomplicated in terms of its, you know, where it was placed and what it looked like?
Yes, it was at the back of, like, the left side, the back of my head, by the cerebellum. So it was around the nerve for my hearing in my left ear. So they did carefully dissect that away, hoping that I would get my hearing back. But they said it just all, again, I also don't know much about tumors, but they said it all just peeled away very nicely, and it went much more quickly than they were anticipating. And I did get the hearing back in my left ear a few weeks after surgery. So it just, yeah, went really smoothly and really well. And it was benign. So
Yeah, that's the really important part too. Because at that point, you wouldn't have had any, until it's tested, you would have no idea whether it was cancerous or not.
yeah, they were pretty certain from the way it looked on the MRI that it was benign. But yes, until we got pathology results back, we did not know for 100% sure. So
Michaela, did you say this thing was 6 centimeters?
yep.
Okay. I'm also obviously an American, so I just pulled out a ruler, and that's like 2.5 inches. That's big. Ugh.
So even though it's benign, is there a risk that something could come back? Like, are you at risk of another tumor at some point, or did they think it was random?
Well, Since I am so young, there is a risk that it could recur someday. Like, not a big chance, but just mainly because a lot of meningiomas are more common in women, but they're usually found in older women. And so, say if you're 70 and you have this removed, the likelihood of it coming back, you might be 90 or something. So just because I'm so young, it could, but it's not something I worry about or think about. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like it's ever going to come back. It's not something I spend my time thinking about.
Yes, yeah.
Podcasts are free to listen to, but they aren't free to create. Katie and I would appreciate your support as we work to build the Barnyard language community.
Patreon is an easy way for you to make a contribution that goes directly to making the show. As a member of our Patreon community, you get to watch the video version of our weekly updates, complete with questionable hairstyles and clutter. With 3 levels of support, you can choose a tier that works for you.
Keep the podcast going by becoming a patron today at patreon.com/barnyardlanguage.
So you were then out of the hospital or moved back to a hospital closer to home?
Completely out of the hospital. So I got brought back from the ICU or to the ICU after surgery, and my surgeon had wanted me to stay intubated for about 12 hours just because where that tumor was, it's also right by your brainstem, which controls, your breathing, your swallowing, kind of important things.
Yeah, all the good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. He wanted me to stay intubated, but not very long after I was back to the room, I started, even though I was still heavily sedated, I started trying to pull it out myself. And so they got the respiratory team and assessed me to see if I could breathe on my own, and they took it out. And so then a few hours later, I was up walking around, and so then they moved me to a regular floor for 2 more days, and then I got to go home.
And so did you go back to a home with 4 little kids in it?
Sure did.
So what did your recovery look like?
Well, the older 2 were in school, and so that was helpful. And then my mother-in-law, who just lives a couple of miles away, she would come over. Matt stayed home with me for a week, and then she came over for about the next week because I wasn't supposed to lift anything heavier than the baby. And then one of my best friends stayed with me the week after that. But mainly I needed, my mother-in-law would take my then toddler over to her house for a few hours in the afternoon, so I could take a nap and things like that. Recovery was just a lot of sleeping, a lot of napping. If you combine postpartum with brain surgery, I would be fine. And then all of a sudden I'd be like, I have to lay down, or I'm literally going to fall asleep standing up, lots of naps. So
Yes, I imagine your body and your brain needs to recover, and sleep is often the best way to do that. So you talked about nursing your other kids. Were you able to reestablish or maintain nursing with the fourth during that time, or what kind of medications were you on, or those types of things?
So the entire time I pumped the entire time, which, I mean, those ICU nurses, I feel like they were just, in a different world themselves because, I'm like, I need all these postpartum things. And so they kept going back and forth to the OB floor. They were being postpartum nurses, which an ICU nurse never, hardly ever, I would imagine.
Yeah, hopefully, rarely, right? You don't want a postpartum woman in the ICU.
Yeah. And so they brought me a pump. So I was pumping the entire time, but all the steroids and the pain meds and all the things, I was not really producing anything, and the stress. But I was determined to, because I did breastfeed the other kids, I wanted to at least try again. But it meant that when I got back home, I had, I think, 8 or 10 more days of a steroid that I had to wean myself off of. And of course, I wanted to be mostly weaned off of any pain meds, just to ibuprofen and the muscle relaxants. So I kept pumping until then. And then when it got closer to, I knew I was going to be able to try to nurse her, and I wasn't sure if she was even going to latch on anyway again. It had been, I think, 13 days at this point, but I wasn't producing anything. And so I had to completely relactate, which was also something I'd thankfully never had to do, but
How does that work?
just a lot of time. I thankfully had a very supportive husband because I just said, okay, for around the clock for the next probably 3 to 4 days, every 3 hours, I have to hook myself up to this pump and pump for 20 to 30 minutes. And did that for a day or two with no results. I'd get like a drop. So you pump for 20 or 30 minutes, and then 2.5 hours later, it's time to do it all again, all day, all night. By the second or third day, I think I was pumping maybe half an ounce out of each side. And so I was like, you know what? That's okay. Like, if that's, if I can nurse her a little bit and then either supplement her, whatever, like, whatever I need to do is fine. We had friends who had donated breast milk the entire time that I was in the hospital. But when the day came that I could try to nurse her, she latched on and, like, without missing a beat, like, just another, I think it was just a small, like, gift from God. Like, here you go. Like, you've been through so much. I'll give you this one small thing. So, yeah. And then she was my hardest one to wean because I was like, I worked so hard to nurse you.
So the physical recovery is one thing, but what about the emotional side of recovery? I mean, it's no small thing to be going into brain surgery with, like 4 little people at home depending on you, and all of the stress around that situation.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things that, um, I mean, I say, like, I should have known better, but I think it all was just such a whirlwind that I was like, I'm fine. Like, I came home, I'm fine. Like, no big deal. It was benign. Yes.
Right. It was benign. So yeah, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at my 6 week postpartum checkup, one of the OB docs is actually a friend who I went to college with. Um, like, talk about small town Nebraska. But she was like, "So how are you?" And, I was, "Oh, fine." And she's like, "Michaela, that was really traumatic what you went through." And I was like, "Oh, it was, wasn't it?" Like, and so then after that, I was like, I should probably talk to someone, but still, like, felt okay. I think it just took a while for it to catch up to me and for me to realize, like, the enormity of not just like being taken away from my baby and my family, but then the time that I lost with my newborn, and, like, nothing was normal, and the enormity of, wow, I could have died. Like, I was really close to dying. And yeah, so then after that, I started therapy and went back on medication for a while, and um but it was still really hard. Like, I still had a lot of feelings, which is good. Like, it is good to feel those feelings, but it's just hard. So,
That is a lot too. And I mean, even to think about, I'm sure that you probably think back on the time where the headaches were happening and the hearing loss, and, like feeling like something was wrong, but also kind of being told, or literally being told, it's probably okay, or it's not important right now. Like, we'll look after the baby first, but you're denying what your body is telling you for those weeks and months too.
yeah, so I had to work through a lot of guilt over that, feeling like it was my fault, but then also anger at all the caregivers that I saw through that time. And then, yeah, a lot of grieving that I missed out on this newborn period that I will never get back. And yeah, sadness, anger, grief, all the things.
Yeah. The top 10 list of feelings.
Yeah, even though, like, I think that's why I so adamantly talk about, whatever kind of trauma it is that you go through, whether it's a diagnosis or a car accident or birth trauma or whatever, it is okay to say that, yes, I'm so grateful that it turned out and there were so many awesome parts of my story, and it really sucked.
I think that is really important because so often it can be the but at least, right? At least you're okay. At least the baby's healthy, and so we'll just skip over that and keep moving, which, for some people works, maybe, or maybe not.
For a while until it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Until something else comes up, and then you're like, "Oh, I have not dealt with all of that." Those all that stuff that happened is still hanging out there, and the at least doesn't help in that moment, right? Like, yes, yeah, I'm grateful that me and my baby are okay, but it doesn't mean that I'm just going to get over that thing that happened.
I think too, Michaela, there can be such an assumption with a health crisis like that where there's not follow up care. That you're not doing chemo or radiation or huge amounts of PT or whatever. So it's sort of seen as like, well, they fixed the thing and now everything is fine. And you're like, but no, it's not. And it's just so like everybody just kind of keeps trucking along and you're still like, but I still have feelings about this. And also a hole in my head.
Yeah, this giant scar.
Yeah, it's a lot to deal with.
Do your older kids have memories of that time that they needed to work out? Like, did they? I guess. And where were? Did you divide and conquer with? I've got four kids too. I know having somebody look after everybody is a lot, especially when they're little. So where were all of they during them during that time?
Yes. So I had mentioned that the baby went with my in-laws just a couple miles down the road, and then my older two were in school at the time. So my sister-in-law, who lives just a mile down the road, she's a school teacher there. So the older two stayed with their aunt and uncle so that they could just go back and forth to school with her. And then my mom, my parents who live in central Nebraska, about 3.5 hours away, they had been planning on coming that weekend anyway to meet the baby. So even though I was not here, they went ahead and came to meet the baby, and then they took our 3-year-old home with them. And so I think it was really good for all of the kids, but also for both sets of our parents to have, a baby and a toddler to help keep their mind off of things.
Right, especially when you're at a time when the hospital isn't allowing support people there anyway, and yeah, you need people to look after all the people. Do your big kids talk about it at all, or how much did they understand about what was happening?
I think so. The older two definitely remember it. The 3-year-old does not. Um, I think, I mean, it's something that I worried about is how will this affect them long term? Because I know it was scary. There was so much unknown. They didn't know when I would be home. They were just trying to carry on with life like it was normal, and it was not normal. Um, I, I mean, again, kids are resilient, and it took some time. Like when I got home, there were lots of feelings, lots of crying, lots of, they just wanted to be in the chair with me or near me, which was all completely understandable and normal. And so now, yeah, they talk about it, and I think they understand. And
And the postpartum period for older siblings can be a stressful time anyway, right? Like, and you said you were extra tired. So, yeah, so to have you home, but maybe not the same mom that they're used to, like, and having extra people around the house and stuff is super helpful, but it definitely changes the dynamic of the home too. So it sounds like you had a lot of community and family support, obviously. Um, One thing I've been thinking about is sometimes those of us who are not in the crisis don't always know how we can help. Are there things that people did during that time that were helpful to you? Like if someone is looking at someone in their community and thinking like I want to help that person but I don't know how, what were things that were helpful to your family?
yeah, that's something that I have carried forward and tried to keep in mind. It was incredibly helpful to have my mother-in-law take the toddler, even for just a couple of hours each day, because, toddlers, I don't know what I would have done if I was trying to somehow entertain her and take a nap and take care of the baby. And then our community, Hemingford is a town of about 1,000. Our community, for I think almost 6 weeks, brought us a meal every single night. And that was one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced in my life. Like, we often joke now, like, can we make a meal train? Like, can we do that again? Like, just for no reason. That was so amazing to have that taken off my plate, having to come up with a meal, and then the time cooking, grocery shopping, etc. I don't know what we would have done. So that was incredible.
Yeah, it's sometimes making a meal for someone seems like a small thing, but when you think about all of the steps that go into actually making a meal, it's amazing that any of us eat ever. Like, it really is too much to consider we have to do it multiple times a day.
Yeah. And then there were all the things, just friends offering to give the big kids a ride to wherever they needed to be. Or the first time that I got to go, I couldn't get my hair colored yet, but I desperately needed a haircut because the surgeons actually did a good job of just like shaving kind of a C shape around my ear. Um, but the first time I went to get my hair cut, the gal who does my hair wouldn't let me pay for it. And another gal came over and cleaned my house from top to bottom and wouldn't let me pay her for it. Like, just all these, yeah, you think it's just a small thing, like, oh, I can't really do much. But those things were huge to us. So I just try to remember, like, when when somebody else is going through something and I don't know how to help, like, even the things that you think, oh, well, this won't make much of a difference, but it does.
I'm trying to visualize too dealing with the toddler and a newborn and a 10-pound lift restriction, because I know even post C-section how well that lift restriction lasted, and that was not, maybe your brain will explode if you lift anything too heavy. Like, that's a whole different level of don't lift anything. Um, and I know certainly my kids are 16 months apart, and the big one had 0 F's to give about me saying that I could not pick her up, because she doesn't know, she doesn't understand, and she doesn't care. How long did it take you to kind of get back to quote unquote normal? I mean, it takes a while anyway with a baby, but I assume that things like driving and, doing things were.
Yep, I couldn't drive until I was done with the muscle relaxants. So I think at about the 2 week, right around the time that I could start trying to breastfeed again. But also, I was probably not quite as active in my fourth pregnancy as I was with all the others, just because I was so sick and didn't feel good the whole time. But spending, so had the baby on a Tuesday, went home Thursday, and then Saturday I was right back into the hospital from like Saturday night, Sunday until the next Friday. So spending not quite 2 weeks in a hospital bed. I just remember getting home and probably the first shower I took here at home, looking down and being utterly horrified that I had no muscle anywhere. Like 2 weeks laying in a hospital bed. And I was like, I've spent the last how many years lifting weights and trying to build muscle, and 2 weeks in a hospital bed and it is all gone. And I was like, don't be upset about this. Don't be upset about this. You are alive. But also, like, I just remember that exact moment. But yeah, I think, I'm trying to remember when I had my appointment with my neurosurgeon. I think it was around January. He finally told me that if I wanted to start lifting and running again, I could. But he was like, but you have to start really slow. And I'm like, there is no other way I can start right now. Do not worry.
Yeah. Slow is my only pace.
Yes. So I just gradually was doing some yoga and started lifting, from the ground up. Like it was like starting over. But then I feel like as I don't know, one of my friends was like, you're not starting over. Like you've never done this before. Like your body will remember. And it did. Like I think by April or so, I was back to running. I don't want to say normally, like not as much, but like it felt fine to run and lift. And so
I'm going to come at this from my angle. I don't necessarily believe that everything happens for a reason. I think that can be a kind of a damaging phrase, but what have you gained from this experience that you carry forward with you? Not that the experience was necessary for you to learn those lessons, but what have you learned and held on to from what you went through that has, that you feel like has benefited you?
First of all, I completely agree with you. I've even in the like immediate months after my surgery, I wrote about how like having a brain tumor was a blessing and like all the whatever, like now I cringe at it, but I was just so like trying to get the point across that so many blessings did come from it. But now down the road, I'm like, I wouldn't say that it was a blessing.
Right. I didn't have to go through that in order. Yeah, like if I could have opted out, I would have.
Yeah, because I also I'm with you. Like, I don't like telling people, oh, everything happens for a reason or what. Like, I don't think that's helpful. I don't think that's true. Again, sometimes things happen and I think they just suck. And you'll never know a reason for it.
Yeah, I mean, the reason is your brain created a tumor, but like that, yeah, it's not like it was there to teach you something necessarily.
Yeah. But I think you can just take something that happens and you can either be bitter and angry about it for the rest of your life, or you can say, okay, what am I going to do with this? I choose to now live like I could die tomorrow because each of us literally, you can think that you're the healthiest person out there and people die every day running a marathon. They thought they were super healthy and, shit happens. And so that's what I try to remember is just what can I take with me from this? Like all the beauty in the world, the good things, the good people, the people who were the hands and feet of Jesus. Like I always want to now take that forward. Like I want to be the hands and feet of Jesus for other people when other people are hurting or going through something rough. Not having the attitude of I'm not going to wait to do whatever that thing is, like, oh, I'd love to take our kids on vacation someday, but so like if you have the means, like take your kids on vacation, or oh, we'll take family pictures when I lose 20 pounds. No, take family pictures today. Like your kids will much rather have those pictures than be like, oh, well, mom didn't like the way she looked, so we don't have any pictures, like things just literally, I know it's cliche, but it gave me a new perspective on so many things. Like I am the one who says I love you and makes it awkward because, like, hey, I'll see you tomorrow, but I love you. Like, because you never know. Just, yeah.
Yeah, that's really true. Thank you.
So, Michaela, we ask all of our guests if you were going to dominate a category at the county fair, what would it be? And categories can be real or made up to ensure that you win.
I love this question. And I asked my kids because I couldn't come up with anything. I asked my social media. My kids had some really great ideas, everything from cooking, which I absolutely would not win, but I'm really glad that that's what came to mind for them. I narrowed it down to two things. One that I came up with, and then one of my friends actually said the same thing. I really love, I don't know if you gals have heard of House of Color, like getting your colors done or getting your style done. I did that a few years ago and love it. And I am not associated with House of Color, but I will talk to anyone endlessly about how you should all do it and how it's life changing. And so one of my friends was like, "You are the queen of like your colors and your style, and you just always look so put together." And which again, I'm flattered because 99% of the time I'm just in running shorts and a t-shirt.
But the shirt's in the right color, I'm guessing.
Yes, yeah, they're my color. So but the one that I really wanted to share was what one of my friends said. And for context, last summer, again, this was one of the things that I have this bucket list, as we all do, but on my bucket list is hiking in as many national parks as I can. And so last year we started this, a couple of friends um, from high school, actually, high school, college. We hiked rim to rim of the Grand Canyon. And I knew that I was doing it. And I just kind of flippantly was like, who else wants to do this? Like, it's going to be fun. And they both were like, please, I want to come with you. And then it turns out that hiking rim to rim of the Grand Canyon is around 23 miles and about 15 hours worth of time. And it was 123 degrees at the bottom. And it was crazy. So,
right. And you start going down and then you end going up, right? Like it's the reverse of a mountain. That's the thing about canyons.
so one of my friends said that I would win the category of most likely to casually ruin your quads and hips with a chill hike contest. Warning, it may include surprise switchbacks and spiritual awakenings. Because that was one of the hardest things, well, probably the hardest things that the four of us had ever done mentally and physically. So I loved that. I was like, yes, that is me. Like, I'll just casually ask if anyone wants to go on a little hike, and then it's
right, and then it turns into a little peer pressure, and now we're at the Grand Canyon.
yeah, and then you can't yeah, and you're not going to be able to walk for a week, but it's fine.
So, Michaela, were they still as happy to be your friend at the end of this, or did it take a while to recover from?
We're all still friends, and in fact, we're going to go hike at Glacier National Park next summer. So,
Well, I feel like they know what they're getting themselves into now. Like,
I do feel like at least with a mountain, your return trip is the easier one.
yeah, and it should be a little cooler.
Yes, yeah, that's right. We went to the Grand Canyon. We were pregnant with our first. It was kind of our baby moon. And there were all those signs saying, remember, if you go down, you have to come back up. Because I'm sure there are so many people who are like, oh, this is cool. We'll go down a little bit further into the canyon. But yeah, then how many people have to get rescued because they can't make the climb back out? Well, we will go ahead and move into our cussing and discussing segment. We have our speak pipe or our email if listeners want to submit theirs. Katie, what do you have to cuss or discuss today?
I'm sure it's not intentional, and I'm sure it's like a confirmation bias. But how do kids always get sick when you have plans? Always. Do they must get sick other times, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Maybe it just doesn't, we don't remember it as much because we aren't just disappointed in the fact that they're sick.
Because today we have company from out of state. It's Friday. It's a beautiful day. We're supposed to have a bunch of friends over tonight with their baby. We have a birthday party for another little kid friend tomorrow. We have all sorts of stuff planned, and I have a kid on the couch with a fever.
Perfect.
And
cancel it all.
Well, I will admit that part of me says that a bunch of these kids go to the same daycare. They've all been around each other all week. Like,
yeah, they're all going to get it eventually.
Is there really any point in keeping them separated now? Like, they've already licked each other. You know they have. Like,
yeah. And it's so hard to make that call too. Like, okay, are they sick enough? Like, is anyone going to judge me if I cancel? Or like, are they going to all of a sudden rally and tomorrow they'll be like, bouncing off the walls waiting for the birthday party that you just said they couldn't go to because they were deathly ill?
Yeah. Yeah. Michaela, what do you have to cuss and discuss?
Oh, goodness. I thought about this and I couldn't really come up with a whole lot other than just keeping with the theme of knowing or keeping in mind, like you said, a lot of times people are going through things and there's no physical evidence of it. And so just I feel like we all right now in this moment in time could, whether this airs next month or next year, I feel like it will still apply. Just keep in mind that, people that you encounter might be going through something and you might not know. So just be kind. Yesterday dropped off some kiddos at church camp and we stopped to get lunch on the way, and the gal at the restaurant was so rude. And even the 10-year-old boys that I took were looking at me like, what is going on? And I'm like, that's why you need to be kind to everyone, because she might just be having a really bad day. And yeah.
Right. Maybe her last table was not kind to her, but we'll show her how we can be.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the worst that's going to happen is you'll be kind to somebody who didn't deserve it. And I guess that's still probably good.
Yeah. Undeserved kindness is still is all right.
Well, Arlene, what do you have to cuss and discuss today?
I'm going to go back to kind of what we brought up earlier, the work that goes into all the frigging food that all of the people in my house consume every day. We are recording at the end of June at this point. Not sure when the episode will come out, but I'm staring down summer vacation. My teenagers just started exams, so they'll be done in a few days, and my elementary kid will be done next week. And I mean, yes, packing lunches is, a thing, but the older ones pack their own lunches. They are happy to eat the same thing every day, which I am delighted about. Like, as they put the stuff on the grocery list, I buy it and it goes in their lunch bags. And my youngest, I do still pack his lunch, but it's not very extensive, and he has a pretty boring palate too. So it doesn't take a lot of thought. But yeah, having everyone home every day through the summer and having us all needing to eat food all the time just feels like too much. I don't know why we have to do that so much. It seems like a biological function that we could make more efficient somehow.
Let's say, Arlene, I guess it hopefully doesn't matter when this comes out, because hopefully you will still be feeding people. I mean, hopefully you will still have people who require food.
Yeah, doesn't matter when it comes out. They might be back in school in September, but they'll still be eating, and we'll have eaten all the things all summer and cleared out my fridge and freezer.
Yeah, it always takes me a minute to remember when I have to switch from I can get away with getting groceries maybe once or twice a week, and then the first week or two that the kids are home and I'm getting groceries every other day. And I'm like, so much food.
Yes, exactly. But it means they're healthy and blah, blah, blah. But we can still have feelings about it, right? This is what we learned today. I can have feelings about all the healthy people who won't stop eating in my house. So thank you, Michaela, so much for joining us today. If someone wanted to reach out and find you online, where could they look you up?
I'm mostly just on Instagram now, Michaela.Gassling. So I respond to messages and whatnot there. So
sure. Thank you so much. It was great to have this conversation.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Michaela.
Thank you for joining us on Barnyard Language. If you enjoyed the show, please support us on Patreon with a donation.
Big thanks go out to our show editor, Krista Paffrath at the Rural Podcast Network.
Please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen, and follow the show so you never miss an episode.
If you want to connect with other farming families, join the private Barnyard Language Facebook group.
We are always in search of future guests for the podcast. If you or someone you know would like to chat with us, get in touch.
Welcome to the Ultimate Farm Wife podcast. On this channel, we're going to be discussing all things marrying a farmer, moving to the land, and becoming integrated with a family farming operation. Whether you're moving to the farm for the first time or whether you're moving back into a family farming operation, we discuss the ins and the outs of all of it.
Subscribe to the Ultimate Farm Wife podcast today, and I'll see you in the next episode.